Hello, welcome. Thanks for coming. My name's Dawn. I am a grief recovery coach, and this is part of my compassionate conversations. Um, Steve, an author, has agreed to talk with us. If you'd like to give a little background, Steve.
Sure. Let's see. I am I was 35 years as a youth pastor and working with the United Church of Christ. And somewhere in there, it's been several years now, but I had three students who lost both parents in 2 years, two brothers and a sister, and they lost their mother to cancer and then their father to suicide not long after that. So both parents gone. And during that, I should ask, am I allowed to swear on this particular?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, you are.
in advance. Anyway, I during that time, my office at the church where I was working became the safe place for these kids. And because in Steve's office, you can say whatever you need to say, and you can throw things at the wall, you can punch the couch, you can swear at the ceiling and say fuck this or whatever it is you need. And that was all that was happening in my office. And it was such a relief to them. And several times where they would just come in and say, I can't fucking, it's like, yes, you'll be fine. But that kind of anger and that kind of profanity and that kind of release was necessary as much as prayer was necessary to them. So I wanted to write a book that was the safe place, because there's going to be a whole lot of people out there who don't grieve like the Hallmark sympathy card tells them they're supposed to. We get all those cards in the mail that has the picture of the silhouette of one person walking alone on the beach and with the always there or something written at the top and then scripture on the inside. And you just want to take it and throw it away. You look to see who sent it. Okay, and gone, or burn it. I don't want these damn things in my house anymore. I mean, my father had a stack of them unopened on his kitchen table after my mother passed away because he was just sick and tired of those. So I wanted to write something that was a grief guide for people who don't grieve like everybody else grieves. I wanted something for the people who are going to get stuck in anger for a while, or who don't want to hear scripture. Just tell me what I got to do next. What's going to happen to me next. I'm in this now, and where do I go from here? So that was the origin of the book. Am I allowed to hold the book up and plug it?
Yeah, I was gonna say I have one too.
Okay. Oh, good. Yes. Yeah, excellent. There's one sale. But yeah, so that was where the book started. And I've just been doing what I can. I've done a couple of grief lectures here and there and been invited to different places. And I started an Instagram page that was just, 30-second long blippets to help people grieve. So it's on Instagram if anybody wants to go find it. But that's where it started, and that's what brought me here today. So
That's what I love it. I love that and I love your subtitles and like the depression. Leave me the fuck alone.
yeah, denial was this didn't fucking happen, and then anger was leave me the fuck alone, and let me see.
Mhm.
Oh, I can't remember now. I had the list.
Embrace the suckage. That's
Embrace
definitely,
the
I like that too.
suckage. Yeah. Uh,
Fuck this. That
yes.
was,
Anger was fuck this bargaining. Let's make a fucking deal. Leave me the
yes.
fuck alone, and then acceptance is just embrace the suckage. And it's such a relief for some people to hear that. Is Mark Twain said profanity can provide a relief that is denied to prayer. And it's amazing how much that is true when people are not trying to be the perfect grieving widow or the grieving adult child of somebody, and they're standing in the church in their suit and tie trying to look dignified, and you can just say, you can say fuck it if you want to, and they do. And it's like, oh, it feels so much better.
And I run into that being a hospice nurse,
Mm,
the family. And
yeah.
they're all like, well, da da da. Now, I can't always just say fuck it at work, but as what I tell them, I said, there's no other word that this sucks.
Yeah.
This just sucks.
There's nothing about this that doesn't suck. And you're going to try to make it not suck, and it's still going to suck. This just embrace the suckage.
Yes.
This is what it is now. So deal with this, and then we'll worry about anything else later.
And it amazes me the relief on their face, even just me saying that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh, I can be human.
yeah. I'm in the safe place. That,
Yes.
and if you're talking with a friend or somebody who's grieving, just for you to say it first puts them in a safe place so they can say it too.
And not the usual, like I was reading some of yours in there, that, they're in a better place. I'm
Hmm.
sorry for your loss. That's not what you want to hear.
No, no,
I
I
mean, I get why we say it, but after so many times, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah, I have the list in the book of the worst things. And when I do this as a talk in front of a group, I will ask them, and everybody's got will raise their hand. Oh, I had somebody tell me, and they because they have heard all of these horrible things. So I keep an ongoing list with my own personal number one, so that when we get through the list, I say, I see if you can top this one, and then my number one worst thing ever said to anyone at a funeral ever, and people just go, "Oh, yeah, it's somebody said that." Yes, they did. I I had to do the funeral of an 8-day old baby, you know,
Mm.
yeah, years ago. And I knew the father. I did not know the mom, but I got her aside at one point and I said, okay, for the next couple days, people are going to say really stupid, horrible things to you. I want you to keep a list and tell me what the worst one was. So we can just have that list going in your head. And after the funeral, she came up and she said, I have the worst one. I said, all right, tell me, what was it? She said, somebody came up, took my hand and said, well, it's not like you got to know him. And you go, are you kidding me? And I said, and you didn't say fuck you out loud? She said, I didn't hear. In here, I said, I yelled it. And I said, but you didn't say it out loud. She said, no, no, I did not. Okay, good. Well, you can say it now. And she did. And then it was like, okay, what do we do now? We,
And I don't understand where, as a society, it's okay to say things like that. I'm not allowed to say fuck you, so why are you allowed to say stupid things to me?
people, well, people don't know what to say,
They-
and you want to be the first one to get the grief card in at the office when it's going to go out to somebody whose mother passed away or something, because otherwise everybody else takes all the good ones.
Mhm.
In our prayers. Well, I can't write that now. What am I supposed to write? So, but I tell people we line up to bring banana bread and say stupid things. That's part of the tradition of most religions. Here's some banana, here's baked goods and an idiocy. We'll have say something stupid. And okay. But if people were,
I'll say
yeah,
stupid things, but I'm gonna feed you while I do it, so it'll be
yes,
okay.
and I have my freezer is full of banana bread and casseroles. It's like, oh, okay, which I can understand. You don't want to cook, but it's like, are we having mac and
You can't
cheese
do the
again?
food without the talking.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, so that's where it started, and we just go from here. We see what happens next, and you try to do the best you can most of the time, even though it takes lots and lots of time. You know this. I mean, it.
As I was saying, I've personally had lost, my dad died 9 years ago, and I've had uncles die and grandparents. And
Yeah.
it's funny we talk about the curse words. I have a group of church friends, lady friends, and we like to do, well, we'll go into the jail on a weekend, and we call it REC, Residents Encounter Christ. So we go in and try to help,
Yeah.
and then we still try to help them when they come out. And one of the girls, we found out within like 2 weeks of being out, she overdosed.
Oh my, inside. Oh
Oh
my.
no, she had gotten out of jail,
Okay. All right.
but she had accepted Jesus, and she was, you saw a new light in her.
Yeah.
So when we found out after she got out and she overdosed, one of the girls was just like, she just screamed the word fuck, just fuck. Like, and I said, and I don't see where that's inappropriate
No.
because gosh darn it, just ain't going to cover it.
Yes. Yeah. It's like I really, for those same teenagers and a couple, I said, okay, just close your eyes, repeat after me. Fuck. Yeah. I was like, okay, I can do that. And then we can do it like you get three or four of them together doing it. It's like a choir. It's a beautiful thing.
And I do think we all need more set. And the cursing is not for everybody.
Mm,
Like you said, sometimes that's not for everyone, but
yeah. Some people need the 23rd
don't
Psalm.
shame the ones that need it.
Yeah, you need the 23rd Psalm and you need how great thou art, and you need all of the stuff that may means funeral to some people is what
Mhm.
helps, the sort of that repetition, like you want to hear the Christmas story read at the Christmas Eve service, and you need to have First Corinthians 13 read at the wedding, and then you want the 23rd Psalm or one of those at the funeral, and then it is actually helpful for some people, and I recognize that, but there is an audience that needs something else, and that's who this book was for.
And those are the ones I feel like I want to reach because there's not, when I hear the word should, you should grieve like this, or you should do this. And that's why one of the ladies I was with this weekend, her mom got put on hospice. And I said, she goes, I don't know what to do. And I said, she goes, I don't know what I should do. I said, you should do what feels right to you.
Yeah, don't
You
let
should
anybody
be
else.
there if that's what you feel you should do, but not because somebody thinks you should.
Yeah, never let anyone tell you how to grieve. It is your path, and you're the one who's on it, and you're going to take as long or as short as you want to. I've recently, and I'm trying to incorporate this into when I speak about the book. People think of the stages of grief as a to-do list. My
Mhm.
dad was like that. It was like, shouldn't I be bargaining by now? No, Dad, it doesn't work like that. But I was at the park and I saw a group of about 8 guys who were in a big circle throwing a frisbee, just back and forth. And there was no pattern to it. It was just whoever was open, boom, 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 and it going across. And all I could think of was that's a much better analogy for grief. If each one of these guys is anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance or whatever, that's how it's going to work. Is the grief is the frisbee that's going across the different spots and different places. And some guy might hold it or on for a while, or they might do a short pass or whatever. But sometimes that's how grief works. You're gonna go through all those things, but maybe not in the same order as everybody else does. And
Yeah,
some
because
it will come back.
I think you can be angry. You can come back to angry a lot.
Yeah, and you come back to uh uh this is the end of October. October 17th was the anniversary of when my father died. And it hits you when you're You think, oh, it's October 17th. Oh, shit.
Here's
Yeah.
my trigger.
And you feel this whoosh again. It's like, oh, yeah, I remember. Okay. Now let's do it again.
It's those triggers, those little things.
Yeah. Sometimes even like Merry Christmas will trigger something in you, or somebody's favorite song, or my mother's perfume. If some lady walks by and wearing my mother's perfume, it's like, oh, all right. I remember that, and a lot of those things come back. But
And like for me, I don't, my dad's birthday or the day he died don't really hit me too much. But if I do a project in my house, I'll
yeah,
sit back and look at it and then I'll be like, oh, dad would have, dad would have enjoyed helping me. Dad would be proud of what I've done.
yeah, I do that with food. The for my father cooked only two things. He made French toast on Christmas morning. That was the only time we had it. And then he made hamburgers on the grill every Saturday night. And I have never found anyone who comes close to making a burger as good as my dad did until a year or so ago. I found a place that comes really close. It's like, this is this is almost as good as dad's. And then every time I eat there, it's like, God, I wish I could bring dad here. He would love this, and that's so food does it for me. Food and smells more than dates and numbers, but everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, my grandpa, it was his breakfast sausage gravy that we always, it was his gravy. And so now
yeah.
when anybody reads it, it's like, nope, that's not grandpa's.
I used to I was working at a church in Ohio, and we were going to be doing I found a worship service for All Hallows Eve. It was like this 1788 written, there's liturgy about, and it was a, a service to be done in the cemetery, because people used to believe All Hallows Eve was when the saints would come down and collect the souls of those who had died and take those people to heaven. And so they would have a worship service out in the cemetery, and I set it up so we would have a potluck. And I said, bring me the dish of the person who most recently passed away. What was their favorite food? And that's what we'll have. I don't care if we have a table full of desserts, doesn't matter. What was the favorite dish of the person in your life who most recently passed away? And this one girl brought this giant plate of these amazing brownies, big, giant gooey brownies and all this, and they were wonderful. And her mother came up to me later, a week later, and said she hasn't made those brownies since her grandfather died. This was the most,
Oh,
she said, this was the best thing that could have happened to her. She got to make grandpa's brownies to take to this service so that she could share them with people. And it was, the baking was cathartic to people, to her. Sorry.
it's amazing the little
Yeah.
things we you don't realize how much it means to someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something you feel as though is insignificant, and it's not the scripted, I'm sorry this happened, it's not that stuff. It's I see a lot of memes about sending grief groceries to someone.
Grief groceries. Okay.
Like get on the Instacart
Yeah.
and have food delivered. And like my friend, she's just have food instead of taking a casserole or something, just
Yeah.
have some comfort food delivered to them.
Yeah.
And then my friend, her nephew passed and she was a server. So, being working in the hospitality industry, you don't have bereavement really. And so I talked with her and I said, what would be better? And she had a water bill coming up. So instead, I paid her water bill so that she could take another shift so she didn't have to work that shift and make sure that they had water.
Wow. I like this idea. I'm thinking Instacart needs this on their official, the grief groceries. And you click
Mhm.
on it and it's like Oreos and ice cream, and, you know, you know, ta-
Chips and
tomato soup and grilled cheese and like all the, you could just take the grief grocery package. That would be awesome. You can have bereavement flights. You should be able to have
yeah,
bereavement groceries. Do they still do bereavement flights? I don't know.
I don't know.
Does
I'd never
anybody?
heard of it, so I don't know.
Oh, you used to be able to call the airlines when you could call the airlines and say, I need a flight to Oklahoma tomorrow. My father died. And they could say, here's a bereavement fare, which was like half price or something, and then it was the airline doesn't lose any money and you get it because I need to get to Oklahoma tomorrow. And
Yeah.
they stick you in wherever they can. But it was, I remember bereavement flights.
And that's why I always try to, that's what somebody will say. Well, what about, I was like, I don't really send things, like you said, I don't send things to the funeral home because you leave and you have a room full of flowers that what are you going to do with?
Yeah.
And not that some people do like that, but I would rather, like with my friend, I would rather pay her water bill than to spend that money on flowers that are going to die that she really don't want.
Yeah.
But at least she could take another day off work because she didn't have to come up with that money for her water bill.
Right. That should be a thing. I think we should invent this, you and me.
That's right.
There's got there's got to be a service that you can invent, an app, okay, bereavement app,
Better things to do.
and it could have a list, and you could put in the name of the person that you wanted to send something to, and you could somehow access their utilities. I don't know, that sounds weird. That sounds stalkery, but
I like, I sounds a little stalkish, but
okay. But we'll work on this. There's got to be something. There's got to be a way to make this happen. We'll do it.
yeah, that's one of those things I like to say, hey, if let's do something different. And they're going to appreciate that more. And not that they don't appreciate the flowers and everyone showing up, but I know with me during that time, it's kind of a blur. You
Yeah.
can't really remember who was there and who wasn't. It was just there's so much emotion.
Yeah. Here's another story. I had a friend named Lisa, and she said I was on my way to my mother's funeral, and my husband's driving, and she said, and I was so anxious and upset, I could feel myself vibrating. And she said, my husband pulls into a 7-Eleven. And I said, what the hell are you doing? We're going to be late. He said, we're not going to be late. They're not going to start without you. Get out of the car. And she said, I don't want anything from 7-Eleven. He said, get out of the car. She said, I got out of the car and I stood there and he went inside and came back with 3 double extra large Slurpees. She said, I don't want a Slurpee. He said, come with me. And they walked around to the side of the building and he handed her the first one and said, I want you to throw it as hard as you can against that dumpster. And she said, I threw it against a dumpster. And he handed me the next one and said, wuss. She said, so I, boom. And he handed me the third and I threw that. And he said, do you feel better? And I said, no. He said, wait here. And he went back in, came out with 3 more double extra large rainbow, the Slurpees. And she said, by the time I got to number 6, she said, I had put all of this that I had in me. I boom, and it was she said, I broke the cup. I threw it so hard, just this explosion of ice and color and goo and straws and plastic. And he said, do you feel better? She said, yes, I really do. And he said, good, get in the car. And they got in the car and they drove to the funeral. But it was just, she was keeping it all here, and finally was able to let that out with just, it wasn't a card, it wasn't the scripture, it was a double extra large rainbow Slurpee that exploded against a dumpster in the parking lot of a 7-Eleven. And she's going to remember that for the rest of her life, that moment where it was just like, oh, I feel
That
better.
was her relief.
I can move on. So I've recommended Slurpees to a lot of people in the last several years. Slurpee is a great way. And it's not to drink. The only purpose that this Slurpee has is to be thrown at that dumpster, and you'll feel so much better.
And that's why I think a lot of it is just create a safe place. Be
I'm
somebody's safe place. Be
Yeah,
somebody's safe place,
yeah.
whether
And
it's so they can cry or scream or throw Slurpees or
you don't have to say anything. Sometimes you can be there and shut the hell up. And that's all somebody needs. And, if I can, I'm going to get biblical just for a moment. Uh,
okay.
uh, there's a passage in the book of Job when Job has lost all of his children and his wife and his family business, and it's all gone. He had three friends who came and sat with him, just sat with him for 7 days and said nothing. And I thought that's got to be a relief. You don't have to try to think of something to say, and the person who's grieving doesn't have to try to be a good host or, what is my response, or I don't want to talk about this right now. It's like you don't have to. Just sit with somebody and be silent. And that silence is a gift in so many instances.
Yeah, because you don't want to be alone, but you don't want to deal with it,
Right. And
basically.
that's so presence, just the presence is I was gonna say the presence is the gift, but that sounds I gotta back up and try that. No, that's not coming out. All right. Your presence is a good thing. If that's all you can give somebody, be there for them. And when someone says, well, we're always here for you, make sure you are, because they'll say we're
Don't
always
say it,
for
show
you,
up.
and then you can't find them when you need something, so
And that's one of those other things. I was like, I don't say it, I just show up and say, hey,
yeah,
we're doing this.
we're
Whether
doing it.
it's I take you for a drive or we're gonna sit on your bed. Like you said, we're
Yeah,
doing this.
yeah, it's really helpful. Um,
Really.
so I don't know what's next. What was our next
What's the things we totally don't understand? I haven't
things
gotten that far.
things we don't to it's things that we don't understand, and you don't have to understand. Maybe you don't need to know what's going on right now. So just move on to let's focus on what we do know. Let's I Grief sometimes is feels like the sky. This is how big grief is, and you're overwhelmed because it's all encompassing. And when that happens, sometimes it helps to focus on your ground game. I can't deal with this, but I can do the dishes. I can make sure every dish in my house is clean. And I've told people this is incomplete, and we feel incomplete when someone has died. So complete something. Complete Do the dishes completely. Do the laundry completely. Clean your house. Do a puzzle. Finish a jigsaw puzzle. Do the complete jigsaw, complete something, one thing, and do it completely, and think, okay, I did this. Now what can I do? So if you're focusing on the ground game, what are you doing with your hands? What are you doing that's tactile? It helps bring the grief from there down to here where I can deal with it and make it small enough that I can hold it in my hands and say, okay, I'm going to deal with this right now.
Are there any things you would suggest anyone who's kind of stuck in grief? Anything to suggest to help move through it?
Um, Usually just taking the pressure off of somebody and saying, you're going to get through this, and you know you're going to get through. I know you feel like you're stuck right now, but you're only stuck because you put yourself there. If you allow yourself to be there, then you're not stuck. You gave yourself permission to be angry, and you gave yourself permission to be depressed for a while. There, that's something that works sometimes. Uh, I say in the book that grief will make you into an asshole. You know, you will be to a lot of your friends and family, but luckily, most of the people that you are an asshole to know what you're going through, and they will accept it and say, she's dealing with this stuff right now. Maybe we should, just let her go, and then let it go when the grieving is almost or mostly completed, or you've been through the process, and you'll go back and say, "I'm sorry, I was an asshole." And it's like, it's okay. You were going through some shit. It's okay.
I think
When
that's lots. Give grace.
when my mother passed away, uh, I buried myself into helping my dad get ready for her funeral. He had go pick out a casket for his wife. I mean, what a horrible thing to have to do. And so we went, and I was there beside her when she died, and then I was with him for the next week as we got everything situated and in order, and bills paid and caskets chosen, and notifications sent out and all this. And I didn't realize how much I was pushing it down in my own soul. But that's like holding a beach ball underwater. Anybody can do that, but can you do seven? Something's going to come up and hit you in the face. And then I got back to my own house, my own job, and I went my first day back to work. I stopped. I'm treating myself. I stopped at Starbucks and this barista, sweet, nice girl behind the counter, got my order wrong, and I was a dick. I was a complete asshole to this, and she didn't know what I was going through. She had no idea, and I was such an asshole to her. And I actually went back a week later, and the same girl was behind the counter, and I said, "Look, the last time I was in here, I was an asshole to you, and I apologize. I was going through a bunch of stuff." And she said, "Don't worry about it. Happens." And she let it go, but wow, did I just treat her like shit, you know? And I didn't, but it was all because I pushed this down. It's gonna come out. It's like, oh yeah, he's he's gonna be an asshole for a few days. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I think that's the other thing. Like you're talking about, you had to go help him. I think probably one of the best things you can give your family is if you have what you want at least written down.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Plan for it.
Yes.
Nobody likes to talk about death, but nobody's getting out alive. So
Didn't Jim Morrison say that? No one gets out of here alive. Wasn't that it? I don't.
I'm not sure, but I do know in the end game, nobody wins.
Yeah, my children have both been told I am to be cremated, and my ashes are taken to Ron John's surf shop in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and half of them buried in the sand, and half are thrown into the fountain in the middle of the store. Or that's like my biggest happy place in the world. So I know my ashes are going to clog the filter, and they're going to just eventually just put it in the garbage. But that's my I want to go out in my happy place, which is this is
Right.
right there at Ron John Surf Shop. Or it would be cool, just put the ashes in like a little container and then give them to the guy behind the counter at the surf shop and have them give out with people's change, so that you'll go all over the world. Somebody from Timbuktu stopped into Cocoa Beach, Florida on their vacation, and they go, "I'm taking this home. What is that?" Well, there was this writer.
That's some dead guy.
It's some dead guy. He wants you to, spread out all over the world. I don't know, but yeah, everything. Things. I have stuff laid out, so it makes it easier when that time comes. For because I don't want to burden my children.
And I've seen it, it's such a relief for families when that's done.
Yeah. And for people who need a list, I have my list. Okay, this is the music Dad wants at the funeral. and or these are the readings, this is who's going to do it, or these are the instructions for afterwards, something like that. But just it's written down, and you try to do your best, so
Yeah. And that's just like I said, at least if it's wrote down, that's less they have to think about, unless they have to go, oh, what would mom want? Or what would dad want? And they're afraid they're going against wishes when they didn't know what the wishes were to begin with.
like that person's going to know, you know
Mhm.
he's not going to know. Just dump, dump the ashes by the side of the road. We got close. All right. We got stuck at the airport in Orlando. So, all right, you know what? Dad's going out on the runway.
Yes.
I I actually I had a friend who she was a priest and she did a funeral, and it was had the family gathered around, and something had gone wrong in the cremation process because she had the urn and it had melted the plastic bag, so that when she opened the lid, the ashes went, and the family's going, all
Oh.
right, Uncle Carl, you know, have a good trip. But if you could plan that, that would be awesome. But
That's funny. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I think
oh
we had a
no,
good discussion.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, and I hope someone just mostly don't let somebody else tell you how to grieve. This is your process, your grief. Go through it how you go through it. There's no rules. You just go through the process, and don't let anyone tell you differently. And
Yeah, there's no right way or wrong way to do it.
right. And we can end on this one if you want, but I have sort of added my own to the list of the stages of grief. So you have the anger, the denial, the bargaining, the depression, the acceptance. At the end of that, I always add the word promise. And I promise you're going to come to a time when you smell their perfume, or you taste that burger, or you do something, and it's going to make you smile instead of cry. Right now, it hurts, because you're going through this process. But my mother died 7 years ago, and she used to collect Santa Claus ornaments that she left out all year long. And every time there's a new Santa Claus ornament from Hallmark, the first year, the first two, it was like, ah. And I felt so bad because I couldn't buy my mother a new Santa Claus ornament this year. And now I look at them and go, "Oh, mom would have loved that one. That's a good one." She would, and I find myself, I'm laughing, I'm smiling. It's like, yeah, that that takes time, but I promise it's going to happen. You're going to get to that point eventually where you'll smile instead of cry,
And it's okay, however long it takes.
however long it takes. Eventually, that's a that's the word. It's like when eventually. Now?
And,
No. Eventually, you'll get there.
and you won't realize it until oh,
Yeah.
that made me smile.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.